My name is Khalid Mahmood. Today's topic is Mr. Putin and the end of 500 years of development. My guest this week is once again Thomas Pochari. He writes on worldaffairsmonthly.com. Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Well, I'm okay. I'm glad I'm not in Ukraine.
Uh,
Good evening, everybody. Yeah.
okay, let's start. Right, in this energy-hungry world, Russia, that has huge reserves of gas and oil, plus is one of the biggest producers of weapons, has decided to challenge the hegemony of the West and invade Ukraine. In your view, what prompted Mr. Putin to take such drastic actions?
Yeah,
And
it's a
I know you
great.
have a different opinion than the mainstream media that is telling us. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to pick
yeah.
up your book on that.
Well, I guess I'm gonna be pretty blunt and frank in this interview. I have been, generally speaking, overall talking to you, but this is going to be more so probably. So, Mr. Putin and I have not met, but I did go to the Soviet Union in 1986 or seven. I think I told you that. And I've had longstanding relations with most of the world's powers, everybody. But in particular, I've had good relations with Russia and China, and it's pretty interesting to realize that the Chinese are not necessarily, to answer your question, the Chinese are not necessarily big intellectual strategists. Deng Xiaoping kind of deviated from that. They don't think that much, believe it or not. But the Russians are, they kind of a mix between Europe and Asia, and they're obviously not unimpressive. They are, they I think it was 1961 they put up a aircraft, a spacecraft into orbit. They're first in the world, right? So, and they build a lot of, so they're very clever people. Now, but the thing is, as I said in a previous interview about Ukraine, they've been through a lot. They've had a lot of massacres and the population been wiped out during World War II. But so I have been working. So to answer your question, I have been working like a maniac. I guess that's the right word. Very strong perseverance and determination to understand how the human world works, and I shared this information with the Russian government from time to time. Now, before the Cold War ended and after the Cold War ended. So the Russian government, if it's an entity that kind of lives on, they're well aware of who I am and what I do. Now, Putin, I think, got power in 2020, so about 20 years ago or something like that. 20, I think it was 2020, and of course, I was always in touch with them. But several years ago, I wrote them a couple of emails via their embassy in Washington. And I basically sent them everything I thought about the world. So I'm going to say, and it's going to be pretty freaky for the audience, but I think Mr. Putin is taking my uh, analysis and basically using it as guidance for what to do. So probably in some sense of the word, I'm the one responsible for this. So he's basically saying to the West, which is Ashkenazi, of course, it's not the West, it's Ashkenazi, Ashkenazim Jews. He's basically saying, hey, fuck you. Sorry about the language. You Ashkenazi went into the Middle East, killed hundreds of thousands, if not a million, or who knows how many. And they carpet bombed. They did a lot of horrible things. And now I think Russia, because the price of oil has been high, and because of peak oil, because of the bottleneck, because of these things, he's realizing that natural wealth and the energy resources of Russia can be deployed to get what they want. And what they want is to restore some degree of identity, and not be, you see, Russian identity, not to be swamped by this Ashkenazi culture, which is basically sodomy routine and this kind of thing, right? So that's what he's doing. And of course, the more he does it, the more the price of WTI, I think, was up to $106 Price of Brent is even higher. Price of energy is rocketed today to about 11% in general. So, he's going to do very well. And he's basically going to ethnically cleanse the Ukraine, because Ukraine was, but ethnically cleanse might be a strong word, but it's a new world. For 1945 till now, till Putin ordered the army in there, life was good and everybody was doing well, and even the Africans in Africa were, kind of given a break, and everybody's kind of thinking, okay, we got to restore, this humanity that we always had, and this kind of thing, be nice to each other. Now it's going to be the killing fields, and so it's going to be pretty ugly. And if the Ashkenazi Jews, the Zelensky guy's Jewish, the foreign minister's, I can't remember his name, Kuleba or something like that, he's Ashkenazi. I think his mother for sure was Ashkenazi. So if they don't back down, Putin's just going to carpet bomb the place. Now, they may not kill a lot of people, but they're going to kill quite a few. And then, of course, if the Western countries were totally dominated by Ashkenazi, if they don't back down, I think it's going to be pretty grim. Russians might even consider using the strategic bombers they have, probably launch them from Alaska, and they'll strike with nuclear weapons, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Washington, and Washington, D.C. and New York. Killing tens of millions of people and totally destroying the United States. I think that's the possibility. However, we'll have to see whether the Ashkenazi back down. But so I think to answer your question, I think he understood that this was the opportune time to do it, and he's restoring the Eurasian power center, right? Because Ashkenazi were taken over there. And the Ashkenazi actually pushed this, and I said this in my interview. Maybe I didn't. They wanted to. Yes, I did. They want to topple Putin's regime and install their Jew-friendly regime. And of course,
are you referring to Halford Mackinder's?
Yes, I am. Yes, absolutely.
The Heartland theory.
Yes, that was.
So you think that the Putin is actually following that and trying to control the heartland?
Yes, absolutely. And I called my old friend Henry Kissinger a couple of days ago. Of course, he didn't answer. I didn't. I put in a request to talk to him on the record for the first time. Of course, he's Ashkenazi, from Germany. I think he's pretty scared to talk to me. He knows I'm a top dog, so he probably won't do it. But he's gonna probably agree with me. I hope he does agree, but I doubt it. He's very old. But yeah, I think Mackinder is absolutely correct. If you can
let me just state for the people who do not know Alfred Mackinder's thing. What he said was that who rules Eastern Europe commands the heartland, and who rules the heartland commands the world island, and who rules the world island commands the world. So basically, it is from here that Putin wants to control the heartland, and from there, the world.
I say that's correct, Khaled. I'm glad you identified the thesis. Now, I said in a tweet at Destructive Capital that the ultimate aim is not just Ukraine. He wants to build up Ukraine for his launch military incursion into Turkey. That's what I'm guessing. Now, I don't know this for a fact. I'm just kind of speculating, but we'll see if I'm right. And so they can do that. They can run their tanks through east of the Caspian there, I think it is. No, I can't remember now. I have to look at my geography. But he can get into place to get access to Turkey. And once he's destroyed Turkey, in the same way he's destroying Ukraine, he will and get his forces lined up there, prepared for an invasion of Arabia, which I think he wants to do. And so he's going to go for the oil in Arabia. And I don't think that'll be a problem because the Arabs are so stupid. Sunni Arabs, I'm sorry, I told you.
Russia was promised Bosphorus Sea in the agreement that was made between the French and the British and the Russians in 1905.
Okay.
and but the Russian Revolution brought an end to that agreement, and
Right.
the Russians were deprived of controlling the Bosphorus Sea. Okay, so do you
Okay.
think that Putin still wants to go under control and will go to war with Turkey then,
Oh
just to
yes.
control the
Well,
Bosphorus Sea?
that's my theory. I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, people will not believe me, I'm sure, but people in the Pentagon, they probably, people in Washington are defecating in their pants, thinking I could be right. You know. So, but what? See, the idea is this. I'm looking at the. I have a globe here in front of me. So, yeah, if he can get, it's not the Caspian. He would go around the eastern part of the Black Sea through the Caucasus, and then he would gain access to Turkey. But I don't think he would want to go west of the Black Sea. So he would go east, and he would probably strike with air power, and I think the Turkish regime would collapse immediately. Erdogan's pretty incompetent. Let's just forget the Islamic element. I just think the Turkish state is really weak, and it will collapse very quickly. And Russian forces will just completely annihilate Turkey. And like I said, once they've done that, he will be poised to go into the Fertile Crescent and go right into Syria. And of course, I don't know what the Jews in Israel are going to do. They're probably going to remain neutral, and he'll go right into Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia.
What about the West? What will the West do in all this time? They're just going to sit and watch?
Yeah, yeah. Because they can't do anything. We have our bourgeois life, which has been this is why this 500-year thesis is so interesting, Khaled, because I realize it, and you did too. You wrote that excellent article. You'll have to tell the audience about it right now. Go ahead and tell them which article you wrote and the title. You there?
Yes, the 500-year circle is nearing completion. I wrote
Okay.
that in July of 2018, and
Yeah.
it's a very excellent thesis.
Oh, yeah. And so I recommend the audience look at that and study that. It's pretty long, and Khaled does a pretty serious job. But yeah, so 500 years ago, all these things began to happen. Very, very powerful, forces building up, and we're at the end of this period right now. And so Khaled had said in an article that everything would be undone, and that's exactly right. That was my thesis. I came to it in 2007 or so. I developed the phases of history. I think I've explained to the audience what I said, but rather than go into that again, I'm just gonna assert that the end of 500 years of development is happening right now, and I don't know what the new world's going to be, but we're going to destroy pretty much all of the world we have right now. All the institutions, everything is going to be wiped out, either because we destroy it ourselves, or because it's destroyed because of the forces we unleash. I don't know, but yeah, but I think that there's going to be this Mackinder thesis, like you just said. The Chinese are the manufacturers of the world. The Russians got the natural resources and the energy, and America was this bourgeois place, kind of awesome place in a way, a bourgeois place. But the Ashkenazi Jews, unfortunately, they do their thing. They undermine the vitality of the bourgeois thing, and it's gone down. Now it doesn't always have to go down. It will go down naturally. But I think that the Ashkenazi, they just specialize in doing that. They did that in the 20s and 30s, and then of course they were hunted down in Ukraine, in this part of Ukraine. I was looking up this morning. They were hunted down by the pro-Nazi Ukrainians, and the Jews claimed there were about 700,000 Jews in Ukraine, and now they're all gone. Well, so the extreme right in Germany wiped them out, and I'm afraid that that's going to be repeated this time because I don't know, but I think Israel will remain neutral. I think they'll just shut the fuck up and sit there like good little children and just do nothing. And because they're going to lose America as their big their big erect penis. Sorry for the sorry for the they're learning what Tom Pochari is really all about. But yeah, so I don't
It's
think the
quite
United States
interesting because I have a similar thesis, which I have explained in my previous articles that
really.
yeah, that wherever there are one of the reason, there are multiple reasons for
Yeah.
for the Ukraine thing, but one of them is that there are so many Jews there, between
Right.
300,000 and 400,000, and
Yes.
Israel wants to take them to Israel to create Greater Israel. But
Absolutely.
that also means that wherever there are Jewish population, there has been terrorism activities going on in the last 2 decades, trying
Right.
to create fear and trying to create uncertainty for the Jews, and tell them that the only safe place for them is Israel. I mean,
Yes.
the Israeli government is on record in the media, kind of saying so. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so, but that probably means that countries like France and countries like America will also have a huge upheaval, and
Yes.
the Israelis will want the Jews over there to move to Israel, so that they, because they are short of numbers, they
Yes, that's
need
absolutely
a
right.
huge number of Jews moving to Israel so they can create Greater Israel.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
they have still not declared what their borders are. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason is because they want to occupy the land between Euphrates and Nile, River
Mm-hmm.
Nile. So
Yeah,
basically,
I totally agree. I
so
totally agree. How? Yeah.
to some extent, the thing is, directly or indirectly, World War One was related to Palestine. So was World War Two, and
Yes.
whether directly or indirectly, this is also about
Yes.
the Middle East as well.
I think you're right. And I used to read that Putin and Bibi Netanyahu would talk often. You know,
Hmm.
so I don't know what that was about, but there's 5 million Jews, about 5 million Jews in Ashkenazi in the United States. They were in the Pale, but they moved over here 1880 to 1910 or 15 or 20 or something like that. There's several million of them came over here, and now their descendants are living here. So obviously, and there's about what was it, about 500,000 Jews in France. Those are the two big populations, and of course Ukraine is in there too. That's pretty big. So those are the three big Jewish populations. However, I would say that I'm going to just be blunt again, and it's not going to be very cute for everybody to hear this, but these Ashkenazi Jews are kooks. Now they got something really seriously wrong with them. They're deranged, or they're kooks. I don't know whether it's cultural or religious or
I think
uh,
we're getting a little bit
yeah.
off
Okay.
off
So
track from our
well,
thing.
no.
I wanted to go back on
Yeah.
the word that you were using, bourgeoisie, and I wanted you to
Sure.
explain to the audience that your thesis about bourgeoisie, okay,
Okay.
from
Okay. So
the how it has happened. Can you start off with for those people who do not know what bourgeoisie is?
yeah.
Can you
Well,
explain that to
okay.
them? What you mean
Sure.
by bourgeoisie?
Sure. Well, last time, Khaled, you interjected, and I thought it was an interesting point. The bourgeoisie, you said, oh, like the feudal lords, and I said, no, not really. What you have in Europe for building up ever since the Roman Empire went down, you have this devotion to understanding what's around you. So you look at the world and you kind of take a detached point of view. You forget the religious world, and for religious point of view, you take a detached view of things, and you analyze, you inspect, you investigate. And so you have this, well, a fancy word is science or knowledge, science, and you have this ability to build technology, to experiment, to get higher yields when you're doing when you're farming and agriculture. And so the bourgeoisie was numbering between 15 and 20% in the 1400s, before Gutenberg built his printing press, and that's a lot. 1 out of 5 people were bourgeois. The bourgeoisie is like the folks who are, they're not farmers. They got their elevated income because they're smart, they have skills, they have knowledge, and they are sort of like a professional class. And they don't inherit their wealth. They don't inherit their property necessarily. Not like the feudal people, the aristocrats, the monarchies. They inherit everything. So they're there because of their skills and knowledge and merit. They're there because, so this this group of people were building up, and very impressive. And I think I explained that during the French Revolution, basically bourgeoisie in France and Paris said enough of this shit, this incompetency by the king's family. We're going to kill him. And so now we see at this point, though, the bourgeoisie way of life can get kind of out of hand. I mean, you have to be disciplined. You have to be stoic. You have to delay gratification. You see, you have to be kind of a tough guy or a tough lady to put up with it. There's a lot of independence. No one tells you what to do. You have to decide everything on your own. So you have to be very, very smart. And naturally, if you have 8 children, 2 of the children might be really smart, and the 5 might be kind of dumb, and 1 might be a freak, or So you have, as time passes, you have to really be pretty tough-minded to keep the thing going. You see what I'm saying? Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Hmm.
And you can't drink alcohol. I mean, I identify with the Muslim world. I mean, I think they're pretty tough. And you can't drink, you can't have prostitution. These things are going to appear, but you have to restrain yourself, right? You have to look for the future, look to the future. And the Ashkenazi have understood that this inherent weakness of the bourgeoisie, and they have specialized in undermining. That's really what this war, coming war, is all about. And probably the war in World War II was all about that. Maybe even World War I. It probably
Interesting.
was. Yeah. So you know as well as I do that a lot of women might want to be sluts and whores, right? They probably
Hmm.
like it, right? But do you want that in your society? No, right? And a fair number of men, males, might want to start having sex with other males and sodomy, but you don't really want that. Now, do you kill these people? No, you don't. But you have to deter these forces from taking over. And the Jewish Ashkenazi, they take this and they just go for it. They basically plunder the bourgeoisie of all of their vitality. Or I mean, they suck it. They suck the vitality of bourgeoisie dry. That's what they're doing. I mean, they are plundering. They are plundering the bourgeoisie. So I think Mr. Putin, a pretty smart guy. I mean, Trump is always praising him. Well, I think he's pretty smart. He's basically understood that I was right, and he's doing what he's going to do. I'm sure I'm behind the whole thing. I mean, the audience could think I'm a kook, but maybe not. But I'm looking at the globe here. I mean, no one's going to believe it. But if he doesn't get, if the Russians don't get Arabia and depose these evil, God, these so-called Muslim despots, propped up by Israel, Ashkenazi, right? I mean, they're disgusting. The ruler of Egypt is disgusting. The rulers of Arabia are disgusting. And the people have to take charge. And it's the same thing in the French Revolution. Get rid of these kings and queens and all these idiot, incompetent boobs. And of course, the Russians have decided they're going to do it.
Hmm. So you don't think that the West is going to come to save their puppet regimes in the
No,
Arabian Peninsula?
no, no. Now I was a little bit wrong. I did concede that there might be some resistance in Ukraine, but in fact, see, we don't really know. When the war starts, you can't really get very good information. Now, I do know that I saw on CNN, which is of course Ashkenazi controlled. So CNN is where you want to go look at the Jewish propaganda. That's what it is. And they showed 2 convoys, I don't know, about 10 or 15 military vehicles, tanks included, in Ukraine that were blown up, probably by these anti-tank weapons supplied by the United States called javelins. You can look it up.
Hmm.
I failed to mention that javelin. They have manpads and javelins, and javelins are pretty nasty. They weigh about 50 pounds, and you can hold it if you're strong and move it around with by yourself. And they were probably responsible for, but only 2 of them. And I would figure the death so far, Russian soldiers, maybe 500 at the most. but the Ukrainian government is saying it's 5,000. That's ridiculous. 7,000 men were killed. 77 to 8,000 men were killed between 1965 and 1973 in the Vietnam War. Americans. So it's 7,000 a year. So these Jews are talking about 1,000 a day. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Totally ridiculous.
Sure.
And even if they did kill that many, they would parade it on everybody's got a mobile phone. They would take pictures of it and put it on the internet. I mean, they give it to the media immediately, right?
Yes.
So it's just more Ashkenazi bullshit. It's just disgusting. They have prevented me from making a good living and publishing books. And I mean, these people are criminals. And I think, the time has come for the world to understand that, well, they are criminals, and it's going to be pretty ugly.
Mhm. So you don't think the West will actually get further involved in this war, and you think that the Russians will kind of continue to
Yes,
march south?
I tend to think that. I tend to think that they can't really do anything, because if they do, they will take so much risk. The bourgeois life, what we have right now, will be totally destroyed. So I don't see how they can do that. And furthermore, we don't really have the energy, the crude oil, to do that kind of war. We don't. We consume all of it. So we consume it in the bourgeois manner, right? And so if we didn't consume it, our economy would shrink, the dollar's value would plummet, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so Putin is right when he said the other day, I don't know where it was, but I think it was fairly recently. He said the dollar is going to decline. Absolutely. Remember, we talked about the dollar. So the U.S. economy is just pushing paper around and move services, and people have to get income, and the only way they really do that is to get somewhere else, by automobile, vehicle, and get to the place where they can get income. So if they can't move around like that, the U.S. economy will go from what is it? What is the size? So-called GDP. I think it's like 20 trillion or something like that. I can't remember. So-called size. It will shrink down to 5 trillion. It will shrink 75%.
Okay.
So we won't even be able to wage war. We won't
But
have the ability.
for some reason, I find it a bit hard to believe that the Russians will kind of accept all these
No,
sanctions on them from the West,
I
and
agree.
let the West kind of sit there and watch the show, and the West
Yeah,
remains undamaged by this whole while the world burns. I find it a bit.
I know. I agree with you, and that's why I've said it's terrible to say, because about 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, I started realizing that nuclear war was inevitable. And I'm going to say that if these Ashkenazi Jews don't get control of themselves, and they're kooks, but if they don't, I think Putin is going to send these bombers out. Now, what's nice about bombers is you can call them back, but if you launch a ballistic missile, you cannot call it back. So I would predict that they use bombers, and then we'll
Okay.
send them off, and then we'll call the White House and say, they're going, and they're going to launch their missiles with nuclear warheads if you don't get your fucking fat face and in order and shut up. Yeah, it can call them back. But I think I got this horrible feeling that Washington and New York, wherever the Jews live,
Mhm.
those they're just going to be totally incinerated.
Okay.
And the United States the Ashkenazis could respond, obviously, but I think the Putin has understood that would happen, and they'll just be in their bunkers.
Okay.
So we're talking about 100 million people dead, instantly, at least, maybe more, because people will die of hunger. There won't be any agriculture. It's going to be pretty grim.
Yeah, because I've been reading on this the food thing. Russia and Ukraine are the biggest suppliers of wheat to the Middle East and to the Arab countries.
That's
So
right.
without any wheat from these,
They're going to start.
they're going to starve.
Yeah.
And there is a big famine and drought coming to Morocco this year as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Okay.
So
Well,
that's
this is
another.
all horrible, and I'm not. I don't want the audience to think I'm relishing this. I'm not. But I have kind of devoted my life to the study of natural phenomena, and scientist is a pompous word, but adjective. But that's what I am, really, a journalist. Second after scientist, I try to understand things, just like you have done that, Colette, and you're devoted to understanding stuff. So I just don't see any way out. We've become very friendly with everybody around the world. Everybody's sort of friendly. I traveled around the world for 10 years and with my wife in the 90s, and it was amazing. We could travel anywhere. We weren't killed. We it was okay. Bourgeois life was taking off all over the place, and people were pretty cool, right?
Mhm.
But the cool attitude is gonna disappear pretty quickly when they realize they can't really feed themselves, or they can't provide for their families,
True.
like Afghanistan. I mean, Afghanistan is being fed right now. I think they're probably sending food in there. I don't know exactly how they're doing it, World Food Program or whatever it's called. They're propping them up, but once things really degenerate in terms of cooperation, then we're going to, like you said, we're going to see a lot of people starving. And I mean, I'm worried about my own. I bought diesel trucks. I wish I'd been able to build a bunker in the backyard, but probably we don't need it. We're ways away from San Francisco, and so we're living in a rural area, and so that's really good. But if you're in London or Paris or Rome, I mean, I'd be worried. I would move out of there.
True.
I mean, I'm sure the Israelis right now are panicking because I called Peace Now. Peace
Hmm.
Now, I called them and the guy was really kind of scared. I could tell he was scared.
How long
So,
do you think this Ukraine conflict will last?
well, probably, I'm not, military expert, but I mean, I don't. It depends on how much resistance they face, but um, I would
Well,
say, yeah, go
I
ahead.
would say that as long as the West is kind of giving them, supplying them the weapons and everything else, okay,
Yeah,
it's the West that is basically allowing it to happen. If the West
yeah,
stop the supplies, the whole
true.
thing would end. So I think the West, to some large extent, is
Response.
um,
Yes,
prolonging the suffering of the Ukrainian. Otherwise, the whole thing would be over by now.
I think you're right. Now, it's you got to come to realize though that Ukraine, these people are just pawns in the struggle because, like you said, the idea is to get the 400,000. I guess is maybe even up to 400,000 Ashkenazi Jews in Ukraine to Israel. That's the goal, and
Hmm.
they want to scare the shit out of them, and then they want to have an airlift. But it's too late for that. Too late. They're not going to get out. And the reason I say that is because Putin made it explicitly clear that if anybody tried to fly weapons into Ukraine, those aircraft would be shot down by his Air Force. So let's just consider that happening, right? That happens, okay? That means that Russian forces will be shooting down some American or European aircraft, and then what are the Americans going to do?
True. Well, America doesn't want a war with Russia.
No. So I think they're going to back down.
Okay.
Probably. But look, I want to emphasize I can't predict the future. I cannot predict the future. Right.
Hmm.
I mean, I thought there would be very little resistance, and I think that's probably true. But CNN is building it out to look like there's quite a bit of resistance. So, I don't know. But I think most people in Ukraine probably sympathize with the Russian. They were part of Russia for a long time. Younger people, maybe there's more affinity for the Western, bourgeois life and sodomy routine. I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, I've been to Russia 30 years ago. I mean, nothing really changes. You have these babushkas, they're kind of big ladies, and they kind of boss around their husband, and I don't know. Nothing's really changed. Slavs are Slavs. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. True. True.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
Well, uh, I'm looking at the globe here and realizing, like I said, it all started in Europe 500 years ago, Western Europe. And we built up the knowledge, we built up the technology. That knowledge and technology spread throughout the entire world. Everybody's doing pretty well right now. Really,
Mhm.
everybody. I mean, you got a pretty good deal going into Oldham, and I'm okay. And, people in China, hundreds of millions of people were poor 40, 45 years ago, and now they're doing okay. And the Russians are okay too. Everybody's pretty okay. Even the Africans are okay. They living in their huts and the dirt floors, and they have a problem with malaria or whatever. But the Congoids in tropical Africa, but even there they have a lot of babies, and their population is quadrupled in 100 years or whatever it is, an insane amount. It's almost a trillion people. Back 100 years ago, it was like probably less than 100 million. So I mean, it's insane how well everybody's doing. But I think this is the peak, right?
Mhm.
It can't go any further. I've said these interviews we've done are excellent. I don't see how we can go further. And Gail
Mhm.
Tverberg said, and I agree with her, go listen to her latest interview at destructivecapital.com. She said, Tom, this is per capita energy consumption is falling. And I agree, it is.
Okay. We keep referring to 500 years. So
Yeah.
let me just remind the audience what the events that took place about 500 years ago.
Oh,
I
great,
mean,
great.
one of them is that Johannes Gutenberg did his printing press in 1450. The other thing that happened was the Ottoman conquered Constantinople in 1453. Well, then in the late 1400s, Christopher Columbus reaches America. Vasco in 1492, and Vasco da Gama reaches India in 1497. England gives birth to a new form of capitalism in 1500. Persia decides to become a predominantly Shia in 1501. Okay, and the
Yeah.
schism between in the Christian world results in the creation of Anglican Church in 1534. So these are the major events that changed the world, and these are the major events that kind of we are reaping the whirlwind of now of the
Yes,
events that took place then. So now we're coming to the end of that 500-year circle.
right. And it's I think I want to emphasize or underline the powerful thing that we call advancing humanity. We are all human, right?
Yes,
Presumably, although
yes.
there might be different types of humans, but I think we're probably all human. And when the Europeans, because they were so clever, when they did this, after the Roman Empire, they had the brain power to build out this knowledge and technology. They went all over the world and they spread this. They basically forced all these barbaric, backward people all over the world. They weren't Pakistani. They were Dravidian in India, in the subcontinent of Asia. Everybody had to basically get on board, right? Otherwise, you'd be obliterated. And so the Noam Chomsky, he's an Ashkenazi Jew. He has this idea that the West is evil. Well, not really. I mean, yes, it was brutal, but the fact is, it was very barbaric, very backward. 90% of the population of the world was backward and barbaric and stupid, and now they're doing much better because of Western devotion to knowledge and,
Sure.
and technology. But as I said, we're going to it. This is what I want to say before you go, and you tell me when you want to go. But this is going to be a turbocharged version of 1500.
Hmm.
Yeah. So maybe a lot of people will die and it's horrible. Maybe I wouldn't be shocked if 90% of the world population is gone within 20, 30 years, but maybe not. I don't know. Can't predict the future. But what's coming is a turbocharged 1500 situation, you see, where we're
Okay.
going to basically uplift everybody that's survived. We're going to uplift them, and they're all going to be, super aware. You won't have these bullshit operations like Ashkenazi Jewish stuff. All the garbage will be gone and history, and we will be pretty damn cool. That's my
Okay.
vision.
Okay.
And so
I think
that's pretty uplifting.
yes, it is. I think we will leave it at
Okay.
that.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
And thank you very, very much. And do you want to tell the audience about your how they can reach your website or?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, my IT professionals, they're really cool in Pakistan in Rawalpindi. They're finalizing the improvements I wanted to make. So I've got 5 websites, and actually my son has one too. So I'll mention that. So worldaffairsmonthly.com, which is and not much there. I'm just, bear with me because I had kind of long haul COVID. I had a dry cough for about 2 years. I felt okay, but I just wasn't very energetic. And then I have monitoringrisk.com, destructivecapital.com, informationtechcenter.com, and bottleneckanimal.com. Now, they're all kind of specialized, like Destructive Capital is about finance and economics, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have my son, and I want to tell the world about him. He's a pretty amazing guy, Christoph. He's at PochariTechnologies.com. It's a WordPress site, but and if you're interested in engineering and energy engineering, it's quite amazing, my son. So yeah, and then of course, don't forget restoringthemind.com, restoringthemind.com, which is Khaled. He's doing excellent work as well. So yeah, if you want to go there and check it out, I mean, I'm going to be putting a lot of new information in the scrolling text, and I'm trying to interview as many people as I can. But not many people want to talk to me because they're too afraid. But by the way, I'm going to be doing soon like a monologue for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes max, and publishing that maybe every day. And then it will be like a news hour. The BBC had a news hour, and it won't be an hour long. It'll be 15 minutes, and I will offer commentary about what's going on. And that
Okay,
could be,
we look
yeah,
forward to that.
yeah, that would be pretty cool. But again, I'm dealing with this problem, and I want to end with this problem, identifying this problem. I am sitting here in a wonderful place on the Pacific Ocean, north of San Francisco, in Bodega Bay, but I don't really have a way of getting confirmation of a lot of the information I get. It's really difficult, and when war breaks out, it's even more difficult. So that's my basic problem. You go to the internet, you go to social media, you get information, but you never can be sure that what you're getting is factual. However, theory does help. So if you have the right theory, then you can kind of guess whether the information you have is likely to be corroborated or not. You see, for example, interest rates really cannot go up in the United States, and I know why. And your audience should understand why that's the case. Yeah, they can go up a little bit, but not very much. So you see what I mean? I mean, I'm hamstrung by my inability to get corroboration or confirmation of a lot of the information I have. And sometimes the sources of information dry up when I identify them. So, for example, Richard Fuise, Fuise, he told me, for example, that the CIA, not the CIA, FBI director is homosexual. Well, maybe nobody cares, but it's not identified. So he's homosexual, and the Ashkenazi Jews own him for that reason. You see. Now I'm going to talk to Ari Ben Menash, a Sephardic Jew from Iran. He's a good friend of mine. He's becoming a good friend of mine. I'm going to talk to him on the 7th, and that will be published at monitoringrisk.com. So in other words, I just want to confess I'm doing the best I can with the limited opportunities I have to get the information.
Okay.
But I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Thank you very
Great.
much. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure.
Okay, bye.